Evening. I'd like to call this meeting to order at 6:34 p.m. and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Vice Chair Godo.
Everyone please stand. Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Adrian, if you could please call the roll, and you'll notice that there is a new name, but I'm going to wait until right before our reorg, and we'll allow her to introduce herself.
Commissioner Andrade.
Here.
Commissioner Branhog.
Here.
Commissioner Chavez Morris.
Here.
Vice Chair Godo.
Here.
Chair Jennings Nunez.
Here.
Youth Ambassador Munoz Rios.
Here.
Youth Ambassador C2.
Okay. We will now have some announcements from our staff liaison, Matthew Morales-Stevens.
If you wish to address the HEAR Commission during tonight's meeting, we request that you please complete a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk, Adrian Franquez. When speaking, please state your name for the record. If you wish to be added to the distribution list to receive HEAR Commission agendas, please email your request to hearcommission@sgch.org.
Thank you. And if I could ask the commissioners to please review the agenda order, and are there any objections to the agenda order? Okay, good. Seeing none, we will go on to agenda item number 3, which is public comment. This is the time set aside for members of the public to address the HEAR Commission on items of interest that are not on the agenda, but are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the HEAR Commission. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the HEAR Commission cannot answer any questions or take any action until such time as the matter may appear as an item on a future agenda. If you wish to address the HEAR Commission, please fill out a speaker's card and hand it to the clerk. Matthew, do we have any public comments?
We do.
Yes, we have a public comment by Andrew.
Good evening, Commission. I just want to start off by welcoming our new commissioner. What was your first name again?
Amanda.
Amanda Andrade.
Nice to meet you.
I read I was here for your interview, and I also read your application. I went to East LA College for a little bit, and I think what you might bring to the city is I've been advocating for just kind of bringing the high school and the young adults kind of getting active in the community, and being at East LA, I think that would kind of fit in good for you. Then I'd like to also thank Commissioner Godo and Brenha for continuing serving with us. It's a beautiful thing that we got you guys going, because this is basically a toddler, right? We're in a toddler stage here at this commission. The other thing I'd like to ask is, so there's going to be kind of a reorganization again of the chair and the vice chair. I'm just wondering if Chair Jenny Nunez, if you could kind of just explain the duties of the chair for this commission. I kind of assume what they are, but I've never really heard them officially what they are. And then the other thing I just want to say is, early voting started Saturday, so let's get out and vote, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. So we'll go on to approval of the minutes. Matthew, do we have any public comments on this action item?
We do not.
Thank you. So if you would review the minutes, they're available in the agenda packet. I think they are right after today's agenda.
I move to approve the minutes.
I second.
Thank you. Adrian, if you could please take the roll, or take the vote. We're figuring out here as well.
Commissioner Andrade.
Approve?
Commissioner Branhog.
Aye.
Commissioner Chavez Morris,
Aye.
Vice Chair Godo,
Aye.
Chair Jennings Nunez.
Aye.
Motion passed by a vote of 5 ayes, 0 nays, 0 abstentions.
Thank you. So now we move on to our first discussion item, which is going to be commission reorganization. The commission will select the vice chair, and the staff will lead the commission members through the available options. Matthew, do we have any public comments on this discussion item?
We do not.
Thank you. So I will say just and Matthew can elaborate, but my understanding in terms of the chair is really the only identified role is to chair the meeting. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Because we are in our infancy and we're still kind of finding our way, and I was a part of developing the HERE Commission, I think I've tried to also, and Vice Chair Godo as well, tried to guide the commission and to manage the meetings, maybe a little bit more than the actual roles and duties may ask for that. But really, the chair is here to manage and chair the meetings. And the vice chair is here to serve in the absence of the chair. I think those are the only two roles that are provided for these, or only two descriptions that are provided for these roles. I will say for the general public, you may notice that there are fewer of us up here than there has been throughout the year. So I don't think they have officially voted for city council, but the decision was made in January when we had our commissioners re-interviewed to reduce the size of the commission to be consistent with the other commissions in the city to 5. So we now have 5 commissioners. We will still have our 2 youth ambassadors. And so Commissioner Brinha and Vice Chair Godo both reapplied, and they were reappointed to the positions. And then we have a new commissioner, Professor Amanda Andrade, and I'll let her introduce herself.
Thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here. My name is Amanda Andrade. I'm a professor and department chair at East Los Angeles College in the Family and Consumer Studies discipline. And I live in the community for the past 2 years about. And my children attend school in the community, and I'm really excited to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, and welcome. And thank you for applying and for participating in improving our community and our city. So Matthew, if you want to take over.
So I'll just give a brief description on kind of how the process will unfold. So essentially, we'll start off with the chair. Once the chair is selected, then the newly selected chair will continue the meeting. So through the voting process, the commission has the option to keep the current chair by nomination. So, for example, if Commissioner Chavez Morris were to nominate Chair Jennings Nunez, she would need to accept the nomination. Now, if Commissioner Godo or Vice Chair Godo nominates Commissioner Brenha as chair, and now we have 2 nominations because both of them have accepted the nominations, the vote would be taken in the order in which the first nomination occurred. Now, you do have the option to reject the nomination, so not to accept the nomination. So either way, we'll need you to speak to either of those, and then we'll take the vote. The same process will take place with the vice chair. Yes, thank you. You can also self-nominate for the position should you choose. Did anyone have any questions before we jump into the selection of the chair? I apologize in advance, Commissioner Andrade. My back is always to you, so I try my best to turn, but the mic doesn't move with me, unfortunately. So with that said, the floor is now open for nomination for the selection of chair. Are there any nominations for chair?
We all have a nomination. I would like to nominate our current Vice Chair Godo for chair.
Are there any other nominations for chair?
Yes. So I do accept the nomination this time. Thank you. I know our chair has served courageously over the last 3 years, so to give her a break, I do accept this time around.
Are there any other nominations for chair?
No, just that I second that nomination.
All right. Now, let's see. Hearing none, I close the floor to nominations and declare that Commissioner Godo is selected as chair by acclamation. Congratulations, Chair Godo. We will now turn the meeting over to you, so I'll hand you over your script.
That was immediate. Thank you.
I always appreciate a good change of power, a peaceful change of power.
It was a
right?
very peaceful. I don't need the gavel.
And the meeting starts on page 3 for the
you.
selection of the vice chair.
All right, so let's see. All right, so the floor is now open for nominations for the selection of vice chair. Are there any nominations for vice chair?
Okay, I'll make all the nominations tonight. So I would like to nominate Commissioner Brenha for vice chair.
I accept the nomination.
Are there any other nominations? Do we need a second?
Just
on
that
the
I
nomination?
second.
Okay. All right, then. If there's only one nominee, then hearing none, I close the floor to nominations and declare that Commissioner Brenhag is selected as vice chair by acclamation. Congratulations, vice chair. Thank you. That was a very smooth transition of power. All right, so we will move ahead to item B, the presentation of our 2022 RIPA data. A representative from the San Gabriel Police Department will provide information on the data collected from 2022 in accordance with the Racial Profiling Identity Act, RIPA, and that representative is our police chief, Chief Elizalde. Matthew, do we have any public comment on the discussion item?
We do, if the commission's okay, we'll hold the public comment until after the presentation.
Perfect, thank you. I jumped ahead. Welcome, Chief.
Good evening, commissioners. Congratulations. Congratulations. So I'm here tonight to present, as requested, the 2022 RIPA data that the San Gabriel Police Department has collected and submitted to the Department of Justice. Oh, am I in charge? Am I pointing it? Oh, there you go. There you go. Okay, for those who may not be familiar, the Racial Identity Profiling Act dates back to 2015, and it encompasses two different identities or entities, the California Department of Justice and the State Attorney General. And what it establishes during this time and moving forward was for state and local government law enforcement agencies to start collecting data on individuals that police came in contact with. A majority of those contacts are through either a traffic stop and or a detention, or what is commonly referred to as a pedestrian check, meaning somebody walking down the street and an officer stopping and talking to them. If, just for clarification, on a pedestrian check, if an officer chooses to go up to an individual and speak to that individual and absent any probable cause and the subject walks away, that would not be deemed a detention. So therefore, a RIPA entry would not be collected on that individual. There's certain parameters that need to be met in order for the RIPA to actually be calculated and submitted to the Department of Justice. Second page. Yeah. So the San Gabriel Police Department, we began collecting data in accordance with the legislation on January 1st of 2022. And when this came about, other agencies, larger agencies started to collect and submit data, and that was based on a cascading effect of the size of the agency. So typically the Sheriff's Department, Los Angeles Police Department, Long Beach, those were some of the first agencies to start reporting, and then it dwindled down to agencies. I believe it was 150 officers and less were the last to start having to comply and were mandated to start complying. So that was with January 1st of 2022. Just like all other agencies, we ran into issues at my former agency and with San Gabriel and learning about this. We ran into issues in which how the data was being collected and how our portals, our CAD RMS system, which is basically the main computer of the police department that tracks all reports, dispatching calls and whatnot. A lot of agencies, again, San Gabriel included, were having difficulties trying to get that portal to communicate properly with the Department of Justice. With that, vendors started making themselves available to law enforcement agencies to collect and report that data. Through trial and error, the San Gabriel Police Department went to Veritone. Veritone, as you can see at the bottom, is used by over 150 law enforcement agencies, and it equates to around 14,000 officers using Veritone each day to collect and submit their information, their RIPA information, to the Department of Justice. We began using Veritone on August 14th of 2022. There was a margin of error in which we stopped using our CAD system and went over to Veritone. We don't know exactly how much information was lost when the migration happened. We do know that there was some issues, but we're fully on board with Veritone moving forward. So in 2022, the San Gabriel Police Department collected and submitted 4,574 RIPA entries. According to DOJ, San Gabriel Police Department operates within a 1% error rate. When we do receive notification from the Department of Justice, we have 60 days to remedy that and resubmit to the Department of Justice. They are the ones that will notify through our Veritone vendor there's an error with a specific entry, and then we correct it, and then it's resubmitted and calculated. Breaking down the information, the graphs and charts that you see were created by me and my staff. When we're talking about RIPA data in general and how it's collected and submitted to DOJ, it's a bunch of numbers. And so what we try to do in this case for you was extract that information and put it into charts that would be a little easier to understand and read, as opposed to just giving you pages and pages of data that wasn't broken down the way you would see it. So this is a breakdown per month with the total of the 4574 at the bottom, and then the graph to the side showing where we peaked and started to taper off. In looking at our data, I wasn't able to establish, nor does DOJ report back to me as to why there's certain lows or highs with our data, other than that's just how it graphs out. I can't point to any particular incident during our high months in February or March, or even down into September, as to what may have spiked the RIPA entries and submissions to them. Going by, sorry, that was month, and this is the breakdown of by race according to Department of Justice. They give us the parameters which to put the information in, and that's what you see, the breakdown. Out of the 4,574 entries, a majority, 2137, were Asian population, and then moving over to 1,800, the Hispanic population, and then going to white or other at 348. The percentages down below, highlighted in yellow, are the breakdown of what you see. We get into gender. It's broken into, and I'll show you in later slides how the officers input the information. It's male, female, non-binary, and or trans. And this is a breakdown on the information that was collected and reported to DOJ. It's worth noting that, and I apologize, I should have said this at the beginning, that all the information that is collected from the officers is off perception. It's the officer looking at a individual and going down the different categories and entering that information based off of what they perceive at that time. That is absent of asking the individual any questions, any identifying questions. So it's what is in front of the officer and what the officer believes he or she is in contact with, whether male, female, trans, and non-binary. So it goes for all the categories. Everything is based off perception. Then we get into age. This is the breakdown of the age of what was reported, and as you can see, our 20 to 29 and 30 to 39 were of the highest population that was collected. And again, going down the sides from January to December, those are the breakdowns. It also gets into the perception of disability and or LGBT+, and this is the breakdown as to what we reported on those. So out of the 4,574 total, LBGT was 1.63% and disability was 0.634. And again, all based off of perception. So how does Veritone work? Veritone is a phone app and also a computer app, either available to the officers on their issued work cell phones and or their computer, in-car computers. And what you see are the different screens, and I'll walk you through what the information is. For the most part, it's drop-down boxes and check boxes that the officers are entering their information. So the first one, the date, the time, going into a little more detail as to what constituted the stop, if it was a traffic stop and or pedestrian stop, roughly how many minutes the encounter lasted, and the location. One thing with RIPA, it will not accept any detailed or identifying information, so you'll either see block numbers, or if it's at a school, in this case, it just lists the school, and nothing reported, or nothing being reported about a particular individual. Then it gets into the officer's assignment, what kind of stop it was, how many people the officer encountered, and then the fourth screen over is just to help the officer in remembering their notes and just putting in some identifying factors so they can remember who they were dealing with during the stop. And then it goes into the gender, and you can see at the far right all the breakdowns of the different categories for the officer to choose from. Gets into perceived age, perceived race, ethnicity, and then it also breaks down into LGBT+, limited English, disabled, or perceived to be unhoused. It also goes into the primary reason for the stop and if the stop occurred inside a private residence. These are the last four of the screens, brief description of the stop, and this is what I'm being told where some of the errors occur, in that the first slide on the left, brief description of the stop, that it is supposed to be all general information, but because it's a free-flowing narrative, the officer may, in error, put something that identifies either the person or the exact location of where it occurred. So when it's going through Veritone and then submitted to Department of Justice, that might be an error that is kicked back to us in that we put an exact location and/or personal identifying information about a person. Again, there's really no parameters because it's free-flowing narrative, but that's a place where we do see errors occur. What action was taken, the breakdown, and then any evidence discovered, and then it shows the final submission where the officer is able to review their entry. They can go back, change whatever needs to be changed, and then they submit it. Once they submit it, it goes to their supervisors. Their supervisors look it over, and then once they submit and approve, it goes to Department of Justice. Different police departments operate differently. Some choose to collect all their RIPA data and just submit it all at one time once a year. Others do it quarterly, monthly. We do it ongoing. So as soon as the process is complete and the supervisor approves it, it's submitted. So we try not to hold any RIPA data and just continuing in a continuous process to Department of Justice. And then that's when we'll get notified if there was an error. The last slides are for 2023 and 24. Just a recap of where we're at. In 23, we submitted 5,562 RIPA entries. DOJ reported only 13 errors out of that number there. And then since January 1 of 24, we've already collected 1,011 entries. What is happening with RIPA right now? There's current litigation going through the courts, and there was a motion filed on January 16th amongst different law enforcement agencies up and down the state, as well as different organizations that represent law enforcement. And one of the issues is that the RIPA board has placed amended the original language, and it now shows to include where an employee has to identify their gender. With that in itself, there's current law prohibiting that, and that's why it's ending up in the courts right now. So this was filed on January 16th of this year, and I believe the first court date is the middle of March, and that is coming out of the Los Angeles Superior Court. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to try to answer those.
Thank you so much, Chief. Do we have questions from any of the commissioners?
I have a couple questions, if that's okay.
Sure.
When you referred to the physical or disability status, is that physical disabilities? Is that mental disabilities?
It's a perception if there is any type of disability, whether physical or mental.
Okay, okay. And do officers typically do this immediately after they have interaction, or do they do this at the end of their shift? What's common practice?
The expectation is that they do it as soon as possible, but because calls for service, they could end with having contact with a person, and then they're off to another call and another call. The goal is to have the RIPA entries completed before the end of their shift, and definitely before the end of their work week. So we monitor and track which officers, not so much which officers, how many entries haven't been approved. And through my staff, my command staff, they go back to their teams and remind their teams to either submit and or the supervisors to approve, so we can get them off of our platform and to DOJ as soon as possible.
And my final question, if you'll indulge me, is there like a training about like objectively identifying these factors that the force goes through so that they can, you know, like, because it's perception based, right? Is there any sort of training that officers go through?
No, the only training, and I come from a former law enforcement agency next door. So this was in place with San Gabriel upon my arrival in September. I don't know of any training that any law enforcement agencies did with regards to perception, other than perhaps training how to use the platform and how to submit and fill out and communicate with DOJ.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have some questions as well. So, thank you again for coming. I know we've been talking about this over the last couple of months, so I'm grateful for your time and for explaining this to me and to the board, commission. I do have a couple of questions, and I'd actually like, Matthew, can you go back to the percentages based on ethnicity really quick? I wanted to just take a quick look at that.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yep, yeah, that one, that's great. Okay, I was just kind of comparing it, and I don't know, what you all do with this data after the fact, but I think based on census data, we roughly are 60% Asian American in the community, and then Hispanic around 30%. So do you go back to this data and kind of reflect on how these percentages stack up against the population based on ethnicity? Are those conversations happening?
Those conversations have not happened, at least with my tenure here. Tonight, the team working tonight was given this presentation, so they were going over it with their team so they can see how the data is adding up and what they're doing out on the street. But in short, no, those conversations haven't happened. And what I'm looking for is something outside the norm of the community that we would live in that would cause me concern. And it's not to say that I'm not willing to have those conversations, but if there was something glaring that I felt was concerning for the community, I would definitely have those conversations. But as you stated, our general breakdown of our community coincides with some of the data that we're collecting.
Okay. The other question I had was regarding, you mentioned about the litigation related to the gender of the arresting, or the officer involved in the stop. Is there any other data that's cataloged around the identity of or the identities of the individual officer who stops the individual? Around ethnicity, or no?
No. So when law enforcement agencies entered into RIPA through DOJ, officers are assigned numeric identifiers, nothing more than a numeric identifier, where we're not even privy to the identifier as to what officer is doing what and what their data entry or their data that they're submitting looks like.
Okay. And then is there data, presumably there's also data, because I saw on the screen around when searches are like engaged. So like this is all the data around who is being stopped and what their identities by perception were. But do you also have data around how many of those escalated to actual searches and based on ethnicity?
So there's further breakdowns within the box. If one of the boxes, I can try to bring it up. I don't know if I captured it on the screenshot.
Yeah, that's what I
but
saw.
it spoke to what came out of the stop. If there was either evidence found or if it led to an arrest. So that's the entries that would be captured on some of these other drop-down screens.
Yeah, I think that would be very interesting information to see what, beyond the stop, what happened after the stop, in terms of, who was searched, what the percentages were, and then, if there was arrests made. I think that would be very interesting. And something I think that I would also appreciate, and I welcome any conversation from our student leadership up here, would be also around engagement, justice engagement at schools, and how many of these stops that we're looking at right here actually occurred on school properties. That would be very interesting to me.
We should be able to break that down on the example that's up there on the far right. That is, and what you're looking at is a incident in which officers were called to regarding students. So that data should be able to be produced from schools, and that's why you see the age of this one being directly related to students.
Super. And then one last comment is just on the very, very first graph, really quick.
I'm
If you
sorry,
can move that, bring that one up. Yeah, that one. Oh, go back one. Yay. This is all great information. However, I do think it just a comment, a recommendation would be that maybe if you added another scale on the right-hand side for percentage, it would allow people to kind of be able to see what the true percentage is, because right now the scale on the left is really total stops. It's not percentage. And so it results in just a flat line. And I think that there's so much more to be gained by maybe adding a second scale on the right. Just a thought.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to clarify because you said that when the percentage errors, you guys do like a 60-day correction, which is like editing it and like, you know, making sure and then turning it back to the Department of Justice?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, let me back up. So once data is sent over to the Department of Justice, throughout the year, we'll get a very simple report from them saying, this is the number of entries we received thus far, and these are the number of errors you need to correct. And so that's ongoing. So once that process takes place, we don't hear back from the Department of Justice saying, okay, all those were correct. It's constantly moving forward. So they address errors that they found. And sometimes we're also finding, and speaking with other law enforcement agencies, it's sometimes the way the portals are communicating that we might get something bounced back to us as an error. And in some cases, it's just the technology not being able to communicate as it should.
Yeah, because I was also going to ask, like, did you also got any feedback whether it was correct? But it's mostly like correcting from a checkbox and that's it, right?
Well, either that or in that one slide that I showed where it's a free-flowing narrative, again, there might be an error in there that the officer mistakenly either put too much information that could identify somebody or an exact location. So it is corrected. When we do the overall yearly audit on our RIPA, and that's through the Department of Justice, we'll have a better understanding of this was the total entries and this was your error rate versus having true data every month because it's constantly moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, thank you. So just a few questions. The first is the RIPA report for San Gabriel a public document?
I would have to get back to you on that.
I know they published the statewide RIPA report, but they don't, at least where I could see, have individual cities kind of pulled out for that.
I can check. As I stand here today, I don't know if that's the case. I've never seen, it's not to mean that it can't be done, but I've never seen any other agency publish their RIPA data. And in part, that might be, and I'm just speculating here, it might be because the data is so raw that you would have just pages of numbers and not truly broken down into something that might be easily understood without context. But I will look into that and get back to you.
And then if the same individual is stopped multiple times, do they count as separate incidences? And I was thinking of the slide that had the transgender incidences as 4, and just wondering, was that the same person who got stopped 4 times during? But if each individual incident is counted separately, even if it's the same person who got stopped yesterday, today, tomorrow?
Correct.
Okay.
And just to give a little more on that, what I perceive today, another officer could perceive the same person differently. So that's, I don't want to say problematic, but again, it's just based off perception at that time.
And then what checks are there that the officers are recording all of their stops? So you said sometimes they're able to, like, however many stops happen during the day. I don't know how they're otherwise recorded, especially if they don't result in any consequences or arrest. What is it that
So
keeps?
that's an internal audit in which we would have to look at the actual call for service and did that constitute a RIPA stop. So what you'll hear on our radio frequencies from time to time is that when officers clear a particular call or a traffic stop or a pedestrian check, you'll hear them say with a RIPA entry. So there's a correlation to what they just did and that we can be expecting an entry. There could be calls for service that we respond to where there's just in general, 2 or 3 individuals causing a disturbance, but we get out there and they're already gone. So, when we look at that data, we have to be very clear that it's all matching up. But normally, daily, you'll hear the officers clear the service call with some type of communication regarding RIPA.
Thank you. And then Matthew, if you could go to that slide on ethnicity and race. And I would also be very interested in seeing the actions taken for the stops, because certainly what the statewide data shows is that people of color are more often searched, they're more often handcuffed, they're more often put on the curb. It is less likely that you actually find anything in the vehicle, but all of these actions take place. So I would like to see San Gabriel's numbers, because our numbers in terms of disparities not only mirror, but are worse than what I see for the national. So if we have a population of African Americans or Black people who are about 1%, 1.2%, I think is what we show for the census, even though the number 4.5% looks very small, it means you're 400% more frequently stopped if I am Black in San Gabriel, based on the number of Black people in San Gabriel. That's a problem. So, I don't want people to be fooled by, again, these raw numbers that look like the percentage of Black stop is very small, and so it's not worrisome. It is very worrisome when it comes to the percentage of Blacks here in San Gabriel. The same thing for Hispanics. It's almost 40%. We don't have that larger percentage of Hispanics. For Asians, they make up the majority of our population, but they are stopped, only 46% of the time. So numbers can be interpreted very differently just when you're given raw numbers like that. So I would like some follow-up on what happens in those stops, the consequences of those stops, kind of mirroring more what the statewide RIPA report provides for us.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief, for that information. I was wondering, is the Veritone system customizable for the city of San Gabriel, or is that a standard format that all agencies that use that platform have the same exact format?
It's standard in the sense that the drop down in the data that would be collected off that platform is what's required through DOJ.
Okay, because I was very interested in what our Commissioner Andrade brought up about disability, because the number looked very low, and if that's including mental health as a disability, then I would expect that number to be higher. And I know that I think LAPD is able to record how many of their calls involve a mental health issue. And I'd be really interested to know that in particular for our city, since we do share our, not resource officer, but our social worker with another city, so we only have a half-time person. And I think in order for us to make a case that we need someone full-time for our city, that it would be imperative to know how many of our stops are involved with a mental health issue. So I don't know if there's any way to differentiate in that particular field, or maybe that's something in the notes, but I know that's more difficult to run a report just on free-flowing text. Is that something that you all are looking at or collecting?
As far as what the disability may be.
And just in terms of like if there's a mental health issue, or if the MET team is called out, or if the social worker is needed on that call, do we know about like what percentage of calls that is overall?
I can look into that. That would be a separate audit outside of RIPA to see what the type of calls for service that we're receiving. Also, when our MET officer is going out with the clinician. I believe our clinician is back with us full-time as of late this month. So we're not sharing her, at least right now. I think the last agency we were sharing her with was South Pasadena. But I was told that she is out in the field, and speaking with my MET officers, a side note with our clinician is that I gave him a directive that she's to be out with the officers. So if the MET officer per se is busy with meetings or other follow-up, that the clinician should be assigned to a patrol officer, even though that officer is not per se the MET officer. So I want the clinician out as much as possible when she is with us.
Sorry, just one other question I have for you, and it just occurred to me that this was something that is included in the RIPA reports, is that the reporting, a police department also has to provide information about racial profiling complaints. Do you have that number for the last reporting year?
For RIPA or
Yeah.
just in general? I do not have that number.
Yeah, I think it was my understanding that that's also included in the reporting that goes to the DOJ. Is that not?
I am not familiar with complaints going to it. There are complaints, if we receive a complaint, there is a process to address that with DOJ, but I don't believe it's in the realm of RIPA. So it might be going to DOJ as well, but it's a separate project, if you will, a
Got it.
separate audit. And we
Okay.
do have that. It's referred to with most law enforcement agencies as SB2, as that any complaints that we're getting, a platform that DOJ uses and Post use, it's called Mark 43, and that is so that law enforcement can make an entry on complaints, formal complaints that we receive from the public.
And they're cataloged based on the type of complaint?
Correct.
Got it.
And,
Okay.
and yes, and right now, and speaking with the representatives from Mark 43, they are just collecting the data at this point, not investigating every single complaint based on the totality of what they're looking at.
Gotcha.
Thank you so much, Chief Elizalde, for being here. I have just two questions.
Sure.
My first question is, you had mentioned that the RIPA or the Veritone entry is not required if somebody's not brought in, I guess, or the stop doesn't end in. If it were something like somebody was stopped and searched, but nobody was it was fine, that would not require a RIPA entry?
No. So the RIPA entry, the threshold for a RIPA entry is basically a detention where an officer is engaged with somebody where they're not free to leave at that moment. So a majority of them are traffic stops, but you also have pedestrian checks. If, for example, I just wanted to go up and speak to somebody that either was suspicious in nature for that officer at that time, maybe somebody hanging around a liquor store late at night, just very simplistically put that way. If that officer did not have probable cause to stop that person and goes up to the person chooses to walk away, that would not be a RIPA entry. So the threshold is a detention or an arrest.
And that is outlined in the Act?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Also, is there a way for officers to see their own personal history of entries? Because I think, as Chair Jennings-Nunez said, that there are disparities in the percentages of race overall, but I'm just wondering, maybe certain officers do perceive like a higher number of a certain race or something else, and I'm wondering if they're able to get that feedback and see, oh, maybe I am over perceiving in this way.
What they're able to view are any entries that they personally make. I would have to check with you. I don't know if once that entry is submitted to DOJ through the portal, that information is retained in their profile, but I can check on that for you.
Yeah, I think this kind of goes back to what I was saying, is that like what kind of review happens with internally at the police department around this data. That's eventually, although it legally has to go to DOJ, what kind of reflection happens within the department around, you know, the number of stops based on ethnicity, what kind of reflection happens around, you know, individual police officers who may be perhaps, you know, stopping individuals of a particular race at a higher rate than the normal average across the police department, right? I think those are kind of what we're getting at, yeah.
I think that can be done through a report as a whole with the organization, but because of the identifiers or lack of identifiers, I would just have numbers for officers, not Officer Smith, Officer Jones, and what their history is.
Any other final questions for the chief? Thank you so much for coming. Oh, was there one? Are you sure?
No, I just want to echo Commissioner Chavez and Brenha that I hope that we are not just collecting numbers and sending them in, but actually using these numbers as it was intended by the board to cause reflection and to make sure that we aren't over-policing certain populations, that we are not racially profiling certainly, you know, certain populations, and that we're not, you know, just complying with collecting data to send in that will never be looked at again.
I think even with anonymity, I think looking at that information and saying, wow, it does look like there may be some officers who are, you know, stopping folks at maybe a higher rate than what would be expected based on the percentage of the population and the norms across the department, that, you know, you may feel or inclined to provide some greater training, right? That could justify, you know, deeper training into implicit bias, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming and sharing the information with us. We really look forward to partnering with you on many, many things within the city and the follow-up. Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you so
very
much.
Okay.
Okay, Matthew, now, is there any public comment?
There is, and I'll mention that there will be the time for public comment, and then the commission can have a further discussion about the agenda item once the public comments are done as well.
Thank you.
Public comment by Andrew.
Good evening again. So this Assembly Bill 953 has been around for a while, written by Shirley Weber, who is now our Secretary of State, I believe now. And this is like another law, bill, whatever, that's been written that really doesn't make a lot of sense, right? If you look at the categories that had to be listed, and I didn't see it with the Veritone thing, if that was everything, there's 25 items that need to be listed as far as, and when it comes to race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, you know, the age of a person, the reason why a person, you know, if a person speaks English or not, it's all just perceived, right? So it's anecdotal information. This is nothing that that could be used in a court of law because it's anecdotal. You know, it's not good information. The reason for this law was not to do anything with it now. It's to collect this data over time and then create policies. The law was passed, I believe, in 2015. I think it's 2015 or 16. I went to a meeting at Cal State LA in 2017. It was like a public meeting for this law itself. And you could tell that they didn't know what they were doing because it took them almost 5 years to even implement it into for the general public or for the departments. Our department didn't have to use it until January 1st of 2022. This is a law that was passed in 15. So you can see how long it took them just to try to figure out what the law was, right? So that's where I say it's very anecdotal. There's 25 items that have to be listed when they talk about it. I know there was a question about at what point do you make a report? Anytime a person is detained, because one of the items is you have to put the timing, right? Not so much at what time, and I'm sure they probably list the time, but they have to list how many minutes that person was detained, right? So they have to do, from the time that you say stop right here, and then if you arrest them, throw them in the car and whatever, and if you take them to the station and once you release them, then that's his time's up. So that time has to be kind of gathered. It's really weird. The regulations, the rules and regulations for what the police officer has to do is 37 pages. So if you take a look, if you go on the State Attorney General Rob Bonta's website, it's on there. You could see all the rules and regulations that tell them how to perceive what a person's race or what a person's identity or whatever. So it's 37 pages. I read about 12 of them, and I was just like, wait a minute, I got to start all over again. I think I'm dyslexic, so that's probably why. But the other thing that I wanted to bring up is that on Rob Bonta's website, it shows that we did not, it says here, San Gabriel Police Department located in LA County, Los Angeles County did not report January through December. But I'm going to assume that that's because going from the CAD to the Veritas might have done it, because this data was updated on June of 23. So I don't know if there was something, but that's on Rob Bonta's website that we're not in compliance. And my time's up.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andrew. Can we have the chief respond, or should we just move to a discussion amongst ourselves?
You can certainly have a discussion.
I have one quick question I want to ask the chief.
Unfortunately, the public comment would be limited to the 3 minutes. So for the purposes of the commission, you certainly can have a discussion. You are welcome to bring any staff member back up for any additional questions that you might have during the discussion as well.
Okay, great. All right. Should we close public comment before the discussion? Okay. So if there's no other public comment, the time for public comment on this item is now closed. But if there are any additional thoughts that the commissioners would like to discuss while the chief is here or for follow-up, I welcome your thoughts.
Just that, again, thank you for providing this presentation. And I'm going to assume that that staff will follow up on the items that we've kind of all individually mentioned that we would like to see report backs on. I think that this is a great start to this relationship where we're, sharing this information. I appreciate the transparency, and I definitely appreciate your responsiveness to following up and delving a little deeper into the data with us in hopes that perhaps some of the folks on this commission can help to perhaps, shine a little light or daylight some of the data that might be a little deeper that maybe the department can learn a little from, right?
Any other discussion?
I just, again, want to also acknowledge that Chief Elizalde did just get here in, September of 2023, so he is responsible for presenting data that he really didn't participate in collecting or having the decision to, on how it was collected, but now that we do have it, and we are looking to you to utilize it, and not, as Andrew mentioned, just kind of have it floating out there until policies are made years and years and years from now. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that all of the commissioners probably would agree that that the commission is very interested in having this information be available to the public in a way that is understandable. We know that the raw data is difficult to kind of interpret, but if you're putting together some reports for your staff, and of course, your presentation here will be part of the record for the HERE Commission, that it would be important for the public to be able to access it and view it as well. Sure.
If you could, if you would like, the commission would like, what I can do is, so the state publishes their own RIPA data report. If you would like, what I can do, being that this is the first one and trying to get that raw data into some imaging for everybody, if you're okay with it, I can duplicate what is on the state's report with our data if the commission would like that. Because they take a much deeper dive, but they're also collecting everyone's data and doing that report. I'm certain that we can try to do our best to match what they're doing if the commission would like that, so at least there's some consistency as to what the state is publishing and then what we're publishing.
And I think that the executive summary is about all that I got through. So it is a couple of hundred pages, the report. So I think something small that really looks at the areas that most, the average citizen would be interested in. So utilizing that executive summary as a template, I think, would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm definitely grateful for your efforts to try to visually display this data, because it is very overwhelming, right? Because it's a lot of data points, right? So I do appreciate you doing that, because I think for folks who are in the community, kind of again talking to folks who are from different backgrounds. We do have folks who are also neurodiverse, and so they're going to want to see things displayed visually. It helps to really kind of ground it and simplify it for folks and who might get very overwhelmed. Even neurotypical people would get, I think, very overwhelmed with the amount of data sets that it encompasses. So thank you for that.
Not a problem. And just for just further clarification, I don't mind adding a few screenshots of what the raw data looks like, and so you can have an appreciation of what we're trying to put on for you. But yeah, we can do that.
Thank you so much. I think that would be very helpful.
Okay.
We appreciate you, Chief.
Thank you so much.
Any other discussion on this item? If not, we will move on to item C, a discussion of the All Are Welcome program. So the staff will provide a debrief of the feedback provided by the City Council during the February 21st City Council meeting. Staff will also provide additional resources to the Commission to assist in the development of the program. Matthew, do we have any public comment, I guess, before this?
We do. It does look like our member of the public has stepped out.
Can we
If
go
you'd
back
like
to that?
I can provide a quick update, and then if our member of the public is not back, if you want to take a 5-minute recess, you could do that, or just continue on.
We'll continue on, because I think this is going to be a big item, but let's move ahead.
Sure. So we'll provide a very brief update on the presentation that was provided. So I included in your packet the last staff report that was brought forward to the commission that the members of the commission at that time agreed upon and supported for presentation to council. The staff report that was presented to council for the most part mirrored the information that was included in that staff report. Of course, we included information pertaining to the budget, and then during the presentation there were additional questions that were brought forward by the members of the city council that staff provided as much information to at that time. Feedback that was provided at the time was to bring it back to the commission to have a larger discussion as to how it can be more inclusive to the general public of San Gabriel, I should say. And there were some questions brought forward as to the difference as to whether an organization can adopt it as a whole versus as to whether or not an individual within an organization can post it in their particular working space, which staff would need to further clarify after tonight's discussion as well. There was also mention as to whether or not the symbol was in direct relation to the mission, or if additional clarification would need to be provided by the church. And so we mentioned that it was not approved by the mission prior to the presentation to council, excuse me. I will also note that it was not approved by any organization in particular, including the church prior to presentation to council. So the major takeaway was the All Are Welcome program, the name of the All Are Welcome program as it relates to the LGBTQ+ community, that there was a specific population that the program was focusing on, but that the name of the program may not be reflective of that goal. So the direction of council was to create a more inclusive program that better encapsulates the All Are Welcome name. And that was the summary, but I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions that the commission might have.
Well, it looks like the member of our public who had a comment has not returned. I guess we will close the the time for public comments at this time, and move forward with our discussion. And I want to acknowledge that Edward Macias, who's the Director of HR for the city, Human Resources, has joined us tonight to provide guidance and input should we need it on this item. And I think our goal for this discussion is to come up with a plan to move forward at this meeting, if possible, so that we can take this back to the city council. So, okay. Oh, our member of the public has returned. So maybe we will have the public comment now before we start our discussion.
Public comment by Andrew.
Good evening again. So I was at the city council meeting on Tuesday last week, and what I got out of this was that basically the all are welcome, and I spoke to no longer chair Jenny Nunes. I spoke to her about it openly because I was at the meeting, and what I felt was that the council looked at it as the all are welcome as everybody's welcome, right? So what we need to do to get something like this going is we need to identify what we're doing, right? This is it. And then I was really taken aback when the council member Machakas mentioned something about the bell belongs to the church. The bell doesn't belong to the church, okay? And we did a survey a couple years when the commission first started. We did a survey, and I filled in that survey. And one of the things that I put in that survey is I wish the city would not use that mission and would not even use city with the mission, because if people really understand what that mission represents to people like me, it's enslavement. It's just I don't even want to go into it because it's heartbreaking to me what that mission represents to me, what that Catholic religion means to me. So for them to say, oh, all are welcome, but don't use this bell, I suggest we don't use the bell. What I would suggest, let's see if we could get Lonnie Edmond to make us a logo. Because I noticed in some of his paintings, he had like what his abstract person, but behind was kind of like, all the colors. I don't know if you noticed some of his paintings were like that. He had all this, like the background, and then he put his abstract, would look like a person or whatever. So, if we could get him to come up with something for us, that would be great. and just add a few $100s, $1,000 to the money we need to have it done. But I think that's what we need to do, is kind of focus on what this true safe space, going back to the safe space, what it's truly about. So they understand it's not an everybody thing. It's a community that they're looking at that needs to be included. We need to protect and make sure that their space is safe for them, not on everything. Because I think they missed it in that, because they're like, oh, everybody, the this and the that. So just my little bit of input there on that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
If I may, before the discussion begins, I will also note, and I apologize for not mentioning it earlier, if the commission does decide on a final adaptation or amendment to the initial proposal, it will go back to council for final approval. So whatever format that takes will go back to council for final adoption and approval, including the budget item again.
Okay. Yes.
And that includes if there is no budget for it, it still has to go back to council for approval. Is that true?
Correct.
Okay.
So if the goal is to have it adopted citywide, it would need to go forward to council for approval.
Okay, so I think in order to try to get through everything, because I know everyone probably has a lot of commentary, I think I will kick it off with Commissioner Chavez Morris, who were sort of the leads on this effort, and then I'd like to have all of the commissioners have a chance to react to the meeting if you so wish. And then I think that we really should focus on how we can move forward as soon as possible, putting something together to put forward to the city council, hopefully at their next meeting. So I agree with our member of the public. I was very deeply disappointed with the decision the City Council made to reject the LGBTQ public safety program that the HERE Commission proposed and has been working on for the last year. I once again agree that the council members completely missed the entire purpose of the program, and their arguments and commentary demonstrated the critical need for this effort to bring awareness to this issue. So let me be as clear as I possibly can. Just like the Black Lives Matter and Stop Asian Hate movements were created to address a crisis in the community disproportionately impacting a specific group, and were meant to provide public awareness, resources, and most of all, allies in the effort to stop discrimination and attacks against those communities. This program has the exact same purpose for the LGBTQ plus community. And everyone is invited. The inclusiveness is that everyone is invited to be a part of the solution, and this program gives everyone the opportunity and resources to make a difference. It was mentioned that this program grew out of the community engagement survey that was conducted 2 years ago, where 10% of the respondents requested that the HERE Commission address LGBTQ plus issues, and that was more than any other issue that was submitted. And I remind everyone and just inform those who are new to the commission that this was not a multiple choice list. The answers were generated by the community. And while many suggested something like a pride parade or pride event in San Gabriel, the HERE Commission wanted to develop an ongoing program that would create systemic change versus a one and done event. So Councilmember Menchaca stated that she was uncomfortable having the program focus only on the LGBTQ plus community. However, this is exactly the community that is under attack. And some of the statistics that I've found, the Human Rights Campaign has declared a state of emergency in response to the unprecedented spike in anti-LGBTQ plus legislation that's being proposed and passed across the country. This includes things like hateful efforts such as forced outing of students, bans on gender-affirming care, bathroom bans, sports participation bans aimed at the trans community, and attempts to erase the LGBTQ plus community through textbook bans. So imagine the fear and anxiety that members of the LGBTQ community have to face every single day, every time they enter a public space, and wonder if they'll be attacked or ignored or discriminated against simply for being themselves. And then we might begin to understand the mental health crisis in the LGBTQ plus community. I looked up the statistics with the Trevor Project, and it reports in 2023, 41% of LGBTQ plus young people ages 13 to 24 seriously considered attempting suicide in the past year. And that includes roughly half of transgender and non-binary youth. So when Councilmember Menchaca asserts that San Gabriel is already a vibrant, inclusive, and inviting place to work, live, shop, and play, and does not see the need for this program, she is clearly not considering her privileged position as a cisgender straight person who does not have to live with the toxic stress created by the current anti-LGBTQ climate. And I'd like to urge any members of the LGBTQ community in San Gabriel who feel comfortable sharing their stories to attend the next City Council meeting on March 19th to provide public comment on this issue and help educate our leaders. I could go on, but I'm going to hand it over to Commissioner Chavez Morris.
Thank you. Thank you for your leadership and for your statement, because it very much encompassed everything that I was feeling. And I also want to thank Matthew very much for presenting this initiative to the council. Although it didn't yield the response that we had hoped, I'm very grateful for your efforts to try to explain what our intention was. As I watched the council meeting recording, I was struck by the irony that on the same day this conversation was happening around the program being made more inclusive, Next Benedict, a non-binary Oklahoma teen, passed away after a fight with students who had been incessantly bullying them. This is not a zero-sum game. Creating a program that supports one identity does not inherently exclude others. This work isn't about creating a generic program that serves everyone in the same way. Our community is made up of unique identities, and each one has unique needs. We would not be doing our job as commissioners if we created a catch-all program that didn't genuinely address the challenges and uplift the strengths of the specific communities that make up this city. Does this program need to be made more inclusive? Yes, but not in the way that the council has called upon this commission. I request that we amend the literature to include people who identify as Two-Spirit, just as Next Benedict identified. Let us not forget that this land we are sitting on is unceded territory of the Tongva and Kizh people, past, present, and future. The inclusion of Two-Spirits honors and uplifts the stories and culture of a community that predates the arrival of the mission and the colonization of this land and indigenous peoples. As a cisgender straight woman, I fully acknowledge that I hold privilege and protection that 2S LGBTQIA plus community members do not have. I intend to use my privilege to create safe spaces for my neighbors who are hurting and afraid right now. I remain committed to keeping the program focused on supporting the 2S LGBTQIA plus community. And as Vice President Harris said this week, I see you, we stand with you, and you are not alone.
Thank you so much for that. Vice Chair Brenhag, would you like to share?
Sure. I'm not as eloquent, I think, as my co-commissioners here. But I also was very disappointed when watching the city council meeting. I do agree that they missed the point of our campaign. And I think it does really show and indicate that we do need a program that is like this. Maybe not exactly the same program, but a program in which these conversations can be had, no matter how maybe uncomfortable it makes people feel. Because the discomfort of people who hold privilege is not something to stop a program from being adopted. It's something that will further the understanding and communication, which is, I think, the thing that I'm wanting the most. And I did hear Councilmember Menchaca say that it's such a personal decision a couple of times, and I was a little bit confused about what she was saying. If she meant that it was a personal decision whether or not to support people who are LGBTQ+. And I feel like that seems like not a personal I mean, I guess you can decide whether or not you're going to openly support people. But our hope, I guess, as the HERE Commission in equity and relations is to help us to support all of us, to support each other and to be there for each other. And I agree that the LGBTQ+ community currently is being unduly hurt and attacked. And I cannot imagine, you know, I have friends in the community who are afraid to come out to their parents, their community, their friends, you know, in fear of being shunned and not accepted. And the loneliness and isolation that comes from that is huge. As somebody who's a huge proponent of mental wellness, or, you know, trying to help ourselves stay well mentally, that sense of community and belonging and acceptance is so important, and the safe spaces are so important. And so I'm hoping that we can find a way forward with this program.
Thank you. I don't know if our youth ambassador was able to view the city council meeting or has any thoughts about this, but please share with us.
Yes, I watched half of it, but from what I've also seen, I also felt like it was disregarded. I feel like even though I put some me and my partner also put effort in this, and seeing how you guys also put effort and it not being, I guess, appreciated, it did hurt a bit. And especially knowing that there's like a ton of teenagers that can't even come out. Me personally, know friends, and they also can't come out to their parents because it's hard just talking to them and possibly being kicked out just because of how you identify yourself. And so I feel like the idea of just being uncomfortable even mentioning is why we should mention it, because you shouldn't feel uncomfortable talking something that someone identifies. You can't really change how one is. So I feel like we should still advocate and push forward this program and many more, because I thought that if this program, you know, was launched, then we can have more resources from other cities, such as having like mental help, possibly have more security, and have people report and not feel afraid of any accidents that happen in school or in homes, any other places. So I feel like you should really be advocating, and if people in the city and the council feel uncomfortable, then that should be more of a reason to still keep pushing. Sorry.
Very well said. Thank you so much for your perspective. We really appreciate it. Our newest commissioner,
Sure.
your thoughts, please.
Sure. So I came at this from kind of an interesting perspective because I didn't know about this. And so I did watch the city council meeting, and I saw Matthew's presentation, and I heard Andrew's remarks. And, you know, it's different now understanding the purpose of the program, and I do think that it was very misunderstood in a lot of ways, so very interesting. I'm really glad that you brought up the community engagement survey, because the city council did ask where the data came from, and I don't know if that was communicated, that that's where it came from. So that's excellent to have data backing this. Also, I believe it was in public comment that it was described that there was an incident that happened with violence regarding having a sticker, and I thought maybe there could be some potential opportunity for us to consider that for safety of all citizens and business owners, and consider something by the way of digital badging for their email or their websites. So something else that could allow everyone to represent their business in the way that I think the purpose was, but I'll learn more, while also representing what the cause is here. But yeah, I have much more to learn though.
Thank you so much. And wrapping us up.
So I am giving up my privilege of going last, but it was Chair Goto's idea to go first in this respect. So usually the chair gets to wrap it all up. So I do just want to clarify in terms of the violence that was mentioned during the meeting, that was not something that happened in San Gabriel. It was a story out of LA County. I think it happened in Huntington Beach, maybe? Arrowhead, right, with a pride flag that a business owner decided to display, and someone who came in and killed her. So fortunately was not this close to home, but did bring up some concerns that we've discussed before. So, I want to thank Chair Goto for giving us this opportunity to just vent a little bit, because I do think that the comments that were made at the City Council meeting were personal biased based on their own opinion, and even brought in people's personal religion. And so I think it is very appropriate that we have a little bit of chance to vent and kind of call names. So that's usually my job. So I'm just going to say briefly, I
will remain that job.
I was most disappointed about the way the meeting went, because this campaign was part of our 2023 work plan that was approved by the City Council. It was part of our 2024 work plan that was approved by the council. It was spoken to directly by then Vice Chair Goto during her reappointment interview with the council, without any question. Specifically, Councilwoman Menchaca regularly listens to the HERE Commission meetings and has followed us, I'm sure, throughout this entire process, and really should have had a better understanding. And she was at our Surf's Up booth, where we had all of the logos displayed and had the community, voting during that time. She took a picture that she proudly displayed on her social media. So for her to be the one who kind of was the leading voice in the misinterpretation or misleading of our program, I have a hard time understanding that it was not intentional, because I expected, at the very least, that she would understand what has been transpiring over the last year in terms of this program. I agree that the presentation on its own, when I look at it, wasn't as direct as it could have been in terms of identifying this as an LGBTQ+ centered program that our goal was to start it during Pride Month, that may have been lost. But again, the City Council has had this information for over a year, and they've signed up on it, so they really should have been aware. As other people have said, the argument that supporting and protecting really the most vulnerable and targeted among us doesn't somehow protect the rest of us really is along the same argument that people use to fight against the Black Lives Matter campaigns and intentionally misrepresenting that message. And so, Councilmember Menchaca also brought up several times non-city supported programs like Stop AAPI Hate, Stop the Hate through AYC, but those programs were 100% born out of the need to protect specifically the AAPI community. And even right now, if you go to the AYC website, they're still mainly focused on the AAPI community because there's still a need for them to focus on it. So no one at the City Council had a problem with those programs and with identifying one group that needed special protection and inclusion. And so, again, I can only believe that the problem they had with this program is specific to the group that we're asking to protect. I also had a problem with the comments that were made considering the bell. We spoke fortunately, our city manager did reply that I want to get it right, that the bell, they do use the image of the bell in many of the publications and on our logos. It's not trademarked, it's not protected. It is not a, part of the San Gabriel Mission Church or the Archdiocese, and there really is no need to get their approval endpoint or any of those things. And then, so finally, the other thing that was called into question, and again, I am calling out one particular council member because they really were the lead in terms of completely dismissing the program, but raising the validity of the data that shows the rising anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ hate crimes and calling into question the need for this program in San Gabriel also just was very disappointing. And so I think what I am hearing from all of the commissioners, and I'll give it over to our chair, is that we want to move forward with the program that we presented with the targeted group that we think needs to be protected. I personally say, yes, a program that is more broad and welcoming is a great idea. It's not this program. It is for something that we will work on in the future. We are happy to work on it as the HERE Commission, but we've identified a need in this program, and we want to move forward. So thank you.
Thank you all for your very thoughtful comments, and I really appreciate all of the time and effort that everyone has put into this, including Matthew. And I will just also mention that it was implied that there were inappropriate things in our staff report that were removed, and I just want to state for the record here that nothing was removed from our report. Nothing was flagged or removed by the city attorney. So I think that we've done a pretty extensive job in researching our program, in bringing in subject matter experts, and being very thoughtful about what we're trying to accomplish. So to me, it sounds like we are all in agreement that we want to move forward with this program and not create a different program that encompasses everyone.
I don't know that, I still feel on the fence about this particular program. I definitely don't think we should do a more inclusive version of this program. I don't think that that would help anything. But in some ways, I can see by the reaction from City Council that it feels like they're not ready for this program. And I don't know if they're feeling like, oh, the people of San Gabriel in general are feeling that way, or if it's just them personally. And in that way, I know it's something that can be very divisive, which obviously I believe should not be divisive. This is not a divisive subject for me. But I can see how, if we are doubling down and it can be something that can be divisive and lead away from understanding and communication, I want to do what we can to increase that kind of, relationship building in the program that we put forward.
So if we can kind of maybe open the discussion, I think this is a great entry into this. So I am opposed to changing the program. I am open to perhaps revisiting the name of the program. And just to provide some clarity around for our new commissioner and for anybody who's watching and council members who are watching too, the reason why we went with this name is because, and just for the history of this, safe space programs really originated with police departments all over the United States that had implemented this type of a program to provide safe space for LGBTQIA community members. Now, it was brought to our attention by a commissioner that the name safe space was also appropriated for by law enforcement after 9/11 and that Muslim community members felt that this name of this program that was called Safe Space was targeting Muslim Americans, Middle Eastern Americans who are of Muslim descent, and so, or Muslim, who are practicing Muslims. And so this commissioner said that it had there was bad connotations with it. And so we were very open to the idea that perhaps we needed to explore a different kind of name. Now, if the name that we have chosen is one that is too broad and we need to be more specific, then I'm completely open to that. And I welcome discussion around that. I also want to thank you, Commissioner Jennings-Nunez, for pointing out the fact that, I think, or I don't remember which one of you it was, but that the city logo or the bell is not trademarked in any way. And I think, Matthew, you can probably affirm for us that no city departments, when using the logo, have to ask the Catholic Church or the mission for the permission to be able to use that logo for any of our programs. Is that correct?
Correct.
Super. And then again, thank you for also pointing out the fact that there was nothing inappropriate in the staff report and that it was a very well thought out and presented report by staff.
So I agree that we, if we want to move forward and represent this to the city council, that we are probably going to need to come up with a different name. And for the reasons that were very eloquently stated by Commissioner Chavez-Morris, safe space is not one of our options. There is a national safe zone program that we could adopt. And so I'd like to hear some of your thoughts about keeping or changing the Bell logo. And for our new commissioner, we had public input into selecting that logo. As was mentioned, we had a Pride booth at the June Surfs Up event within the city, and we had members of the community vote on maybe 6 different options of logos that could be used for this program, and helped us to select that particular symbol, given that it is, I think, the most quickly identifiable with the city of San Gabriel. But to our member of the public's comment, maybe we want to consider changing it. And I think that if we make amendments to those 2 items, which seem to be the biggest sticking points with our city council, and I understand from Matthew that there isn't a specific format that the staff report has to take, if I'm not mistaken.
So yes and no. So there's key portions that we have to hit, like a summary and an introduction and an analysis, but as far as the content, no, it's up to the staff and, of course, city attorney and city manager to determine what would be best included so that it's presented to the council as a whole.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yes, definitely. So I think in resubmitting our report to the city council, to our new commissioner's point, I think we need to include more justification of why this program is needed, why it's important for our commission to take up this issue, given that it was something that came out of our community engagement survey, and that we want to move forward with this effort. And I think that in perhaps changing the name and potentially the logo, that we have addressed some of their concerns about it. The other issue that was brought up was whether or not businesses that did not participate were going to feel targeted and feel pressure to be involved or have some kind of feelings about it. So we would welcome all businesses and public spaces to be a part of the program. If they choose not to, it's perfectly fine. As I think was mentioned many times during the presentation, it's an opt-in program, so people can participate as they so choose and feel that they are comfortable being an ally in this space. So, Commissioner, I keep wanting to call you chair. I know that you have prepared maybe an alternative logo that we might have a look at. And I think that maybe the one benefit, if you will, of having a logo that is not so specific to the city of San Gabriel is that our notion of this was to launch this during the San Gabriel Valley Pride Tour that is sponsored in part by the SGV LGBTQ Center and includes cities of El Monte, Pasadena, Monterey Park, Alhambra, a number of cities in our community, that if they chose to have a similar program, that they might be able to also use the same symbol and make this a regional program. So I guess that's the one positive aspect of switching out. So I don't know, Matthew, if we want to show, or
Just
yeah.
say that this is completely one of those Canva things, so we can have an actual graphic designer, make it nicer. But a couple of other things that were concerns or questions, and we asked Edward Macias to be here. And so just, he got asked during the meeting about individuals within the city putting up a sticker. That we really want to stress that we were never targeting really individuals within office spaces or businesses or within the city. That what we are asking the city to adopt is, we are asking the city to adopt this program. And so what we would expect is that the decals would go up on City Hall, on the Parks and Recs office, on the police department, fire department. If individuals within the city would like to put up a sticker at their cubicle or that kind of thing, that's certainly up to them. But we were never targeting things at that level. And so the same goes for individual businesses and organizations within our city. We are asking the business to take on this commitment. In terms of Commissioner Chavez Morris did mention about the safe space, and it was a national campaign kind of spearheaded by Homeland Security that really, on its face, looked like most things, like something you would want to support, of identifying people who could be potential terrorists or who were potential danger, but ended up just being an excuse or a reason to kind of condone harassment and arrest of people in their community who are practice the religion of Islam, who in their communities and in their places of worship. And according to Rick Kahn, it went on from 2001 to about 2014. We did run the idea of safe zone by him because he isn't here to speak to this specifically, and he was 100% okay with safe zone. He said that has no, connotation, no meaning within that community, and so we think that safe zone would be appropriate because it aligns with a national project that hopefully would be easier to understand. So what I would like to see in the next presentation, I think we lost just a little bit from the 2023 work plan, the 2024 work plan, because our 2023 work plan said, work with staff to develop a safe zone/safe space campaign geared toward creating offices, businesses, and public spaces that can be easily identified as safe spaces for minority populations, specifically the LGBTQ population. And somehow when we went to 2024, I think just because we had discussed it for so long, we kind of assumed everybody knew what we meant, and we had also changed from the safe space. And so 2024's work plan said develop and implement the All Are Welcome program and create a Pride event in support of the SGV LGBTQ Center's Pride Tour. So we did connect it with Pride Month, but obviously not as strongly, I guess, as we needed to. So I would really like for the presentation to open and be very, very clear about who our target audience is, when we want to start this program, and as was mentioned, the reasons why it is necessary, even here in sunny San Gabriel.
I just want to comment that I really do like this logo. I think it looks great. I would just like to make sure that when, whatever we come back to council with, that we preface it with, hey, we changed the logo, but this is why, and not because we have to ask the blessing of an outside entity in order to use the Bell logo in some way. But I do very much appreciate this. And then again, I just want to just reiterate that I would also like for this commission to also consider expanding the definition of the community that we're serving to include Two-Spirit, again, and that this would be in response to the ask that we be more inclusive. And so we are responding in of an appropriate way and including more people that way. Yeah.
Yes.
I think it might be interesting to include also the other logos that were surveyed and show the city council that in the presentation and show them that that one was the most popular. And I imagine they weren't all bell-shaped. I don't know that information.
They weren't all bell-shaped, but I think they all included a bell on them.
Okay.
I don't, oh yeah, the ones with the heart had the Bell logo in the middle, okay.
I think it is great to mention the fact that we did have that and that there was a community input. I think that the focus there is that there was community input, that we did not choose this bell just haphazardly, that it was, we gave options to the community said that they wanted to proceed with, that was the most popular one, and then we heeded that call and moved forward with that, which I think is a wonderful thing.
I do just have a quick comment on the logo. I would just like to, see the trans colors a little bit more, visible on that.
And again, this is my Canva in the middle
It's a
of the
mock-up.
night. It is, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying you don't even have to love it, but it can definitely, it was just kind of a for example kind of thing, and so it can be modified, edited, completely changed around. But the idea was to use the more inclusive pride flag colors and the safe zone words in terms of the logo.
Yeah. And for folks that don't know what the request is that there's the pink, white, and the blue colors that are on the inside of the silver or the gold or brown and black that aren't shown right now, but clearly are there. It's just the edit. So, but love the concept.
Yes, this is a mock-up of the Progress Pride flag. Now, do you think that we might be able to get a version of this together by the next council meeting, which is March 19th? You were our contact for the last design. I don't want to volunteer your son, but just wondering, just logistically, because I think it's important in the report, in the amended report or the new report that we submit, that we have the actual logo that we want to move forward with, and I want to make sure everyone is in agreement that we abandon the bell. I think we can still provide in the report the options that were given and the reasoning behind it, and then as a concession to the discussion, can offer this and include the information that this might be able to be expanded to a regional program with some of the other cities that are participating in the Pride Tour.
I'm wondering if Adrian could help with the logo, or is that something that's out of your, because I know that you've done like the graphic design stuff for the flyers, like the Mental Wellness Expo. Is it possible?
And a beautiful job.
Yeah, I mean, you have skills.
So she certainly can create a rendition of what, I'm also wanting to call you chair, so I apologize. I apparently don't
It's very
can't
hard.
make the changes quickly. It's also standing right in front of me. So, Commissioner Jennings, that you put together, but to develop a more elaborate one might be a bit too time-consuming at this point. If the commission were to approve this logo as what you would like to move forward as a sample to the commission, our staff can certainly make some small adjustments to make sure that it captures the items that are mentioned here at the meeting tonight. And then in the staff report, if the commission chose to have an artist create something more elaborate, we could certainly include that this is simply a sample and that a more, I don't want to say professional, but by a
Refined.
graphic artist would be kind of commissioned after the approval.
So if we're in agreement, I'd kind of like to maybe summarize that, that moving forward, we would want to add to the staff report the data and justification for this program and why we want to move ahead with this particular community. I'd like to include a section, and I don't think we really spelled it out as specifically as we should, of the partners that are already involved in this program, which are the SGV LGBTQ Center as a partner. I know that our chief had pledged his support, and given the commentary from our member of the public around safety issues and maybe de-escalation training, I know that AYC provided a really great bystander trainings a couple of years ago that I took, and I don't know if anyone else here did, but it was essentially giving any member of the public very tactical and immediate ways that they might be able to de-escalate a situation around. It was intended for part of the Stop Asian Hate movement, but it was general information that anyone could use. So we could approach AYC and see if they'd be willing to be our partner in providing some of that training as a resource to any of the participants who would be interested in being involved. And then to make note that we've changed the name, that we've changed, and I guess we would all need to agree that we're going to move forward with Safe Zone, and that we've made amendments to the logo, and that essentially we want this to be able to roll out for June and Pride Month. So are there any other areas that you feel are strongly needed in this amended staff report before we go back to the City Council?
I think just outlining the intended, not intended audit, but those that we are looking to provide public safety for. I guess this is where the two-spirit, so gay, we need to spell out gay, lesbian, everyone, who is this program kind of intended for, and that's where we would enter what was suggested by Commissioner Chavez-Morris.
And just for clarity for our new member, the training that was going to be provided by the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center was for the participants to give them a greater awareness of how to be an ally, what the acronyms and terminology stood for, and just a little overview of pronouns and proper usage and things like that. So it's really around allyship and what's expected from being a part of this program and declaring that they're a safe zone.
And
So-
there was some, remind me if I'm wrong, or correct me if I'm wrong, but there was also some bystander engagement included in it?
We did not, because the feeling after the discussion was that that we needed to keep the video within a 30-minute
That's right. We need to
period.
keep it tight.
But I think that
Resources, but we said we were going to include it in resources.
we
right?
definitely have a resource section, and I think that I'm fairly certain AYC would be a great partner for additional bystander training. That training itself, I think, was an hour itself. So that would be separate from the video. The video would be sort of the introduction to anyone who wanted to display the logo at their business site, and then they would be given other resources to assist them should they need.
Perhaps it's also helpful to mention that we already have some preliminary, willingness from businesses to participate in case there's reservations that people would not participate, but we already do have some commitments from folks preliminarily that they want to participate.
I think that would be useful too. And I know that initially when we met, we spoke a lot about the city resources, a lot of the community services space, and maybe we can ask for input from Edward about if the city were to adopt this proposal, would city departments be free to display the logo as they choose, or what would the procedure be for any kind of approval that, say, like the Mission Playhouse would need to display the logo, or the Parks and Recreation Group?
Good evening, Commission. Thank you for having me here tonight. First and foremost, that's a great question. You're tackling a difficult subject here, clearly. And so my answer to you is going to be caveated with us having to have an internal discussion regarding how we would want to use the new symbols and the new program and how to advertise that as a city. But given that this would be adopted on a citywide basis by the head of the city, the council, I can see departments being able to utilize these symbols for this type of program, given authority from the city manager. If the city manager thought it would be appropriate for the Playhouse to use it for a certain event or a certain operation, or for any other department to use it on a case-by-case basis for any type of event that we thought it would be appropriate. We wouldn't be working outside the bounds of what the council has already authorized in terms of a program or an initiative that the city council has already adopted, if in fact that's what they go ahead and do. I don't know if that answers your question.
It does, and I appreciate the input that you gave the council as well, that this was not a program for individuals to decide on their own, that it was an adoption overall for the city. And I think from my perspective, it would really be those public-facing departments that would be the priority. But as our partner, our Commissioner Jennings Nunez, had pointed out, that the safe space is not only for the public but also for the employees. And so we want to make sure that maybe, I don't know, Public Works that may not have any areas that the community may come into on a regular basis, unlike like the senior center, that we are still supporting the employees as well with the safe space. And I know that some discussion early on was about a lot of businesses already have these kinds of programs through either their employee resource groups or through their HR departments, where individuals within companies have decals or postcards or flags or whatever that they put in their workspace to show that they're an ally and a supporter. So I appreciate your feedback. So it sounds like we sort of have a plan for coming up with a new staff report. And since time is short and the next council meeting is before our next HEAR commission, I would suggest that Commissioner Chavez Morris and I work with Matthew to put together all of your thoughts. I would ask our youth commissioner what your thoughts are about potentially reaching out to the GSA clubs at school to see if there were any young people who you think would be comfortable coming to the city council meeting and speaking. We definitely don't want to put anybody on the spot, and we know that some people are maybe not out to their families, but are there any students who you think of sort of who have experience with speaking in public about their stories?
Well, I do know some people, but I'm not sure if they would be comfortable with speaking. I could certainly ask. I could ask people that I know, or if you wanted to be approved by the school first, or like that, I could ask. If they do accept, do you want me to give you like an update, like a week before, or?
If you wouldn't mind letting us know sort of the response that you get, and you can let Matthew know, and he can get that out to all of us, so that just we have an idea of who might be a speaker. I think it's more powerful if it's somebody within the city of San Gabriel, because we can also approach the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ plus Center to speak on our behalf, as well as part of, as a partner and a supporter of this program. But I do think that the council tends to pay attention to those who are within the San Gabriel community. And we do invite anyone in the community who would like to come and speak about their experiences to come to the March 19th meeting, and they can be a part of public comment, because as of this time, we don't know if we'll be able to get it on the agenda or not. But public comment is always open, yeah.
And so I would also just encourage anyone who wants to participate but may not feel comfortable doing it in person or putting their name on it, that the public comment, the way to submit public comments, you can submit public comments anonymously. It's not tied to emails, it's part of the city, a city webpage, and so I will send that information out to you or whoever wants it. And you know, certainly as many people as would like to speak in person, but it isn't mandatory, and it is just as powerful to have all of those comments read as it is to have people who are there.
I know you can submit them online. Can it be anonymous, Matthew, or do you have to put your name in? Because I think it does ask you for your name and your email address.
I believe it can be anonymous, but I will need to follow up with the city clerk's office, just exactly, one, what they collect, and two, what they are mandated to provide as part of the reading of the comment.
And I also want to absolutely, completely agree with you that it's very helpful and very meaningful to have members of the public who reside in the city to be here. But I think there is also something to be said by the impact, the economic impact that this community has within our own business industry, and that creating a welcoming environment, not just for our own residents, but for individuals who may identify with this community and would like to, be a patron of businesses, that we not under, I guess, estimate the impact of that community and the economic drive that they can bring into our community should we implement this program.
Great point, and I will also add that it's not just the LGBTQ plus community themselves, but all of their allies, families, friends. I know that it means a lot to people to see that symbol, even if they are not themselves in part of the community. I speak for myself. So, okay, so I think that we have a plan moving forward, and we will work on that with Commissioner Chavez Morris and Matthew to get something completed before the next council meeting, and hopefully we can get on the agenda. We're still waiting to hear.
Sure, can I, one other thing that I would like to ask the committee to work on is that the second part of this proposal had to do with participating in the SGV LGBTQ Center's Pride Tour. And so that would probably need to be part of some discussion on March 19th as well for us to move forward and be part of it in June. Just my brief suggestion is that if we are going to develop the farmers market, which sounds like we are going to in the spring, that we plan for a Pride Day. It's Saturdays are going to be the farmers market days. That's what El Monte did. I think it would be really easy. The city wouldn't have to set up anything else, but we would just promote a Pride for one of those Saturdays in June to be a Pride Day.
I love that idea, and I would love to see that we try to, and I don't know how we can do this if there's been other vendors that have participated in other similar events, that we encourage, and invite those vendors to participate as well.
Yeah, the Pride Tour last year in San Gabriel Valley was the first ever, and the cities that participated were El Monte, Alhambra, and Monterey Park, La Puente, City of Industry, Pasadena, Baldwin Park, and Hacienda Heights. And they did a variety of things. It was some of them had Pride festivals and resource fairs. There was a farmer's market night. There was a walkabout actually I didn't list it, but a walkabout in Altadena where where the community could visit the location, the shops that were displaying the symbol. They had game nights, they had concerts. I mean, there's pretty much no end to, what could be included in the Pride Tour. So I think that would, as Commissioner Jennings Noon, yes, has suggested, that is something that would not require a separate event to be created. And I think that we had also mentioned that we would want to recognize that our June meeting in the I guess initial group or early adopters or founders at our meeting, and that could also be part of the Pride presentation. So I think that's a good thing to include in the report as well. I know that that there is a leadership roundtable that is planning the tour, and if Sam and Gabriel wants to participate, we might have to have a council member represented on that group. So my plan is to ask the San Gabriel Valley LGBTQ Center to come out to that meeting and make a formal invitation to join that group. I know that 5 cities have already signed up for 2024, but I don't know which cities they are. And I do know that Monterey Park and Alhambra teamed together for Pride Parade last year, so they may do the same thing again. But if there's no other discussion on this?
Just have an area of clarification. Is there a desire to include in the report exactly who would be encouraged, or the request would be to require certain areas to have it? For example, there would be the reach out to, but not a requirement for businesses to post the symbol, but there would potentially be a requirement for the community services department to have it. Is there a desire to make the distinction, or?
For me, if the city's adopting it, then the city needs to push it forward. So I personally would like to see it, as you said, certainly in any public-facing places, but also for the employees, that it is posted within the city departments. Yes.
Agreed. I think that if the city is adopting it, then it should be something that the city manager can direct, I would imagine, the department heads to post in a visible space.
Sorry, and I'll ask one more follow-up question. I'm just going to use this community services. So obviously there's the front-facing component. Is there a desire to also then have it in a personnel area where it is directly geared towards the personnel, or is just the front-facing sufficient?
I think maybe we would have input from Edward on that, about any kind of policy about communication with city employees, like if we were posting it in, say, the lunch area or any area that is not typically public-facing.
So again, given that the governing body hypothetically has approved an initiative and a symbol for that initiative, I think it would behoove the city operationally to also, obviously, we're adopting that. And so anything public-facing, as Commission has mentioned, should come with the implication of the governing body approving it. In terms of individual spaces, if that's the question.
I don't think it's individual spaces. I think we're talking about, like, if you have like a break room board, right, where you would be posting information about webinars or something that are coming up, right? Information for the employees. Would this be something that you would typically post in that space?
Given that it's adopted and authorized, I think it would be appropriate to go ahead and post something of this nature, yes.
Yeah, I think it is enough for it to be visible on, in a public space within the building. Mm-hmm. However, I do think that that it would be very helpful if the general manager could direct staff to could direct the department heads to let them know, inform them that the program is not just exclusively for the public, but is also representative of the department or the city's interest in supporting LGBTQIA Two-Spirit employees as well. So if the directive could be inclusive in that way, then I don't think you would necessarily have to dictate that it be posted somewhere. Yeah.
Right. And I, not to speak for Mark, but I do think that it would go as by default, again, the governing body is approving something, and we should embrace it organizationally if that is in fact what the governing body approves. Again, we do have other policies that we post. You know, we're obligated and required by state law to post other mandates and make sure employees are well informed of that. This would not necessarily be a state mandate, but again, it would be a governing body, something that hypothetically the governing body had approved, and so therefore by default, the organization should also embrace that.
Yeah, I mean, this just kind of supports your already policies around like EEO and, you know, anti-discrimination policies. This would just be, I think, another level of, hey, we're going above and beyond what we're legally obligated to do, right? And so if we can, Matthew, maybe just make sure that we're within that language when we go back to council, that it is very clear that it's not just for the public, but that we're also supporting employees.
Any other discussion? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for all of your input and your commitment to this effort. And we will see how it goes. All right, so moving on to item D, discussion on approved 2024 annual work plan. The commission will continue working on the approved 2024 annual work plan. Matthew, do we have any public comment on this discussion item?
We do not.
All right, if there's no commentary, then the time for public comment on this item is now closed. And I know time is late, but there are just a couple of things that I think we do need to talk about before our next commission meeting. One is the application process for our new youth ambassadors. Our wonderful initial youth ambassadors will be ending their term in April, and so I think we do need to get applications out very quickly. If we, can you give us an update on where we are with that?
My apologies, I had to put it on hold for a couple other projects, but I'm fully staffed again and can pop back over to it, so I can have it up this week, without a doubt, because obviously we have no more time to push it out. So it will go out this week. Now, now that we've pushed it back, which again was staff's doing, so I apologize, is there a deadline that you'd like to have them received back in? I'm assuming you would want the interviews to take place at the March commission meeting?
I think their first meeting was April, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if you recall, Kelly, but I think that your first meeting was April, so you were already selected by then because we did not have a special session. We just did the interviews as part of our regular meeting. We do have the option to do a special session for just the interviews, and I'll leave that maybe up to discussion. We did have a good number of applications our first year, but it was a little bit rushed in terms of the timeline of having the interviews, and so the students sort of got, I think, informed maybe a couple weeks ahead or maybe even a week ahead of when the interviews took place, and so many of the students were not able to attend, and so they were disqualified from the role. So if we can put the March date of the HERE Commission meeting on the application so they'll know that that is the date of the interview, I think that might be helpful if...
I would like to move that we have a special meeting just for the interviews because I think our March meeting is going to be very full, hopefully with planning for our Pride Month events. So if we had a special meeting for interviews, we could possibly do it the first week in April and give ourselves and the students a little bit more time to turn in applications and review and still have them start for their April meeting.
I would be willing to do that. Is that all right with everyone? Okay, then maybe we can pick Okay, so not the first week of April because of spring break, but maybe the second week. And I will remind everyone that the other impending program was our film screening in May, which will be before June. So maybe we can talk a little bit about that. But to close out this item, so we'll have a special meeting second week of April that'll be dedicated to only interviews for our candidates. So maybe we can make a deadline of the end of March so that all the commissioners will have a chance to look through the applications before the interview. And we can talk a little bit more about the format of it at our next meeting. But yes, Matthew, if we can get that posted and if you wouldn't mind sending the link to everyone. I think we need everyone's support to get the word out, including our current youth ambassadors. Hopefully they have some peers who they might suggest would be good applicants for the commission. And speaking of the screening, we had talked about in the month of May doing a screening of Dealing with Dad as part of the API History Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. Vice Chair Brenhag and I did have a conversation with Matthew, with the filmmaker. He was very willing to show the film, gave us some information about licensing fees. We put together a little budget. We are still looking for a venue, and I did reach out to our former commissioner, Jackie Borja, to see if there was a theater available at Gabrielino High School. And I was told there is a theater at Gabrielino High School, but that we have to go through the school district to reserve it and to request it. And so I wonder if Vice Chair Brenhag would be willing to take that on and follow up with it. Matthew, was there anything else that we needed to do before we went back to Tom Huang? I think we also, part of the program is we wanted to have a panel discussion about intergenerational trauma. I had a meeting with our area administrator for SPA 3 for the LA County Department of Public Health, and they are totally on board with being a partner with us, and actually gave me a recommendation for an organization that I think we had reached out to as part of our mental wellness expo. It's the I'm gonna mess up the name, but it's the Asian Pacific American Counseling and Treatment Center, maybe. That's part of Special Services Group. I think we invited them the first year, and because we didn't give them enough time, they weren't able to participate. But she offered to give us a warm handoff to them. So I think if we have a couple of organizations that will be resources there, we want to provide some snacks and popcorn and I don't know, goodies to entice the public to participate and hopefully get some organizations to partner with us in terms of outreach and inviting people to come. I think that would be our plan. Anything else I'm forgetting, Vice Chair?
Not that I can think of. I think I can get together with you to talk through different groups to possibly reach out to and talk to. And then also, did we have a date specifically we were trying to target, or is it still just depending on the availability of the venue?
I think that originally we were, when we were thinking about the Mission Playhouse, we had targeted May 19th, which might have been a Sunday just because of their schedule. But I think we were a little bit more open, and we will probably need to work around the schedule of the school. I think we don't want to be too close to the beginning to avoid all of the other API Heritage Month events, kickoff events. And then towards the end, we don't want to run into Memorial Day weekend, but I think we have a lot of latitude in between. So, yeah.
Just a question. I thought that we also considered the Padilla room or Grapevine rooms for the venue as well, depending on the size. I would hate for us to be dwarfed in one of these large theaters. And we can do food and that kind of thing if we do it at the Grapevine.
We did think about that. I think the filmmaker was wanting to have something that was not necessarily larger, but just that had a nice screen and projection capability. So we can look at the theater at the school. I don't think it's as large as the Playhouse, obviously, but if there are other options that anyone knows of, I think we're really looking for a venue that has a nice quality screen and can do the projection, and then will allow us to maybe have some free popcorn and beverages.
We did talk about this room too, right? Can we not do food?
We cannot do food in here, so that was, I don't think, right, Matthew? Yeah.
To my knowledge, there's no written restriction about it, so we can certainly ask for approval.
It is lovely
It hasn't-
because of all of the screens.
We have
Yeah.
had cake in the front lobby before, so has there been food in here? Yes. And I don't think what the proposal would be is, a full meal or anything, so the risk
No.
that there would be substantial damage to anything
Okay.
isn't necessarily there, so it could certainly be an option. There's a logistics as far as just opening the facility, which we
Yeah.
can certainly figure out. That's not necessarily a major barrier. With regards to Gab High School, if that is a potential option that you'd like to explore, we can reach out to the assistant superintendent that oversees the facilities and just get the direct approval from them. If not him, then he can speak with the superintendent. That might be a more direct way to get that. We'll likely find out the size of the seats of the auditorium, as if it's not substantially smaller, then it might just behoove us just to utilize the Mission Playhouse, since we have kind of direct oversight of it compared to the auditorium at Gab High School.
Got it. I think that would be great, and there may be actually a fee involved with the school as well. So I think those will be important things to figure out. And if this is the fallback, the one thing that we talked about that would be nice in terms of having it here is that it might introduce the public to this space a little and give them a little familiarity with where City Hall is and where the council chambers are. So that's definitely a possibility. And for the panel discussion, this is a nice setup. So if we can look into how bad it would be to have some popcorns and beverages in here, that might be a really good plan too. We can work together on the details. Is there anything else that is very pressing on the 2024 plan that you can think of that we need to cover tonight? Okay, great. Okay, so we'll move on to commission reports. Each commissioner may address the HERE Commission and public on matters of general information and or concern. This is also the time for commissioners to report on conferences or meetings they have attended. Maybe we'll start with our youth ambassador, if you have anything to report, and go on down the line.
I guess would be how I attended with Metro. They really talked a lot about with the budget and planning and how they try to improve their transportation system. I think it's really cool of having Metro trying to actively add changes and try to help the people, because like they said, their source of funding is from our taxes, and so they want to try to find a convenient way for everybody to use Metro safely and efficiently. And so I think it reminded me of how our city has the St. Gabriel transportation where you pay for $1. So I thought that we should I know it's been a long time and it's still on our page, but maybe more advocate, post it more a bit on social media, and probably add I guess giving a little topic oh look, you can use this transportation, not because it you pay $1, but it could take you to this grocery store that's here in St. Gabriel. Or it could take you to the city council, which is here, and you only have to use $1. So maybe something like that that can make people like, I don't know if people use it a lot, but like, you know, make it more usable and have more people use it. So I think that's really cool to add.
I don't have any comments, but more so a question, Matthew, about the proposed farmers market. One of the things that we had kind of brought up, or had brought up when we had toured the Japanese museum, is the idea that perhaps it would be helpful if we could do SNAP benefits at the farmers market. Was that implemented?
So that's falling under the Community Development Department. That's, unfortunately, I don't have a ton of information, so I will certainly follow up with you and get back to you.
Yeah, that would be great. I would really love to know if we are going to be pursuing that, you know, in the spirit of inclusivity and making sure that folks are able to take part in this. You know, I think there are some parts of the city that are a bit of like a food desert, and so it would be nice to know that folks could come here and get fresh, you know, produce and be able to do that in a very affordable way.
So a couple things. Right after our last meeting was the Los Angeles County homeless count. And so I did participate in the homeless count, but for Montebello, because I think I was working or here on the day that they did San Gabriel, and that was a good experience. So I would encourage you to do so next year in January if it comes out. It's really kind of easy to do. So myself and my husband participated in that. And then Commissioner Andrade isn't aware, but the rest of us are aware that we received a $5,000 Healthy Living Grant thanks to our Chair Godo from the City of Hope. And so I did attend the cohort meeting in February, and then just recently there was a evaluation workshop to help us plan for the poster presentation that is coming up in June. I'm not sure, I have to think about that. So I did attend those 2 meetings. Thank you.
I don't have anything today.
I don't really have anything either yet, but I will.
Fantastic. Well, I will say I attended Chastity's Black History Month art exhibition at Blossom Market, which was a wonderful and joyous event that brought many new people to San Gabriel. And I think there may still be time to see the artwork if you haven't already gone, and maybe you want to give some more details about that.
So there is an art exhibit that I sponsored and curated, and our public comment mentioned an artist, Lonnie Edmond, and whether or not he could help with our logo. That is the artist whose work is on display at Blossom Market. It'll be there until March 15th. It's open and free to the public whenever Blossom Market is open. And yes, we did have an incredible reception last Friday, and then a Meet the Artist event on Saturday, and both of them went really well. So thank you to everyone.
Yes, it's up on the 2nd floor. You can go up there and check it out anytime. Beautiful artwork, and thank you so much for putting that together. Earlier this month, I also marched in the Golden Dragon Parade in Chinatown with the San Gabriel Valley chapter of PFLAG, which is an organization that promotes health and well-being of LGBTQ+ people, their families and friends through support, education, and advocacy. And the SGV chapter is specifically geared towards the API community. So if there's anyone in the community who would like some support, the group meets every 4th Sunday of the month in Alhambra. But it was really very touching to see members of the public run into the street to give hugs to some of the members of PFLAG who were holding signs that said, you know, proud father of gay son, and I love my trans child. And it was just really a wonderful event. It was the first time I had done it, and we had a rainbow-colored dragon that we were taking through the streets. So I'm going to have to do some training next year because I was very tired afterwards. And I also attended an event with the California Attorney General, Rob Bonta, last weekend, which was addressing the topic of our fragile democracy. And it included a fireside chat with the AG and a keynote address that was excellent by one of the attorneys who helped overturn the criminal conviction of Fred Korematsu by the Supreme Court in 1944 for defying the Japanese incarceration during World War II. And there was also an excellent panel discussion about the dangers to our democracy that we're currently facing and the history of how we ended up here. So one of the things that was interesting is that the AG Special Assistant, Damon Brown, reported that the biggest issue that the Department of Justice is currently working on is LGBTQ plus civil rights and equal protection under the law. So we're right on course, folks. And I'm hoping that the program will be posted on the Democracy Center's YouTube channel because it was just really excellent, but I'll keep you posted on that. And lastly, I'd like to reiterate our public commenters note that our election is March 5th, and please go out and vote. It's imperative to our democracy to have informed and active citizens.
Early voting is already opened, and so the closest place is the San Gabriel Library. I think it starts at 8 a.m. in the morning.
Perfect, thank you. If there's anything else, we can move to staff comments. The staff members have an opportunity to address the commission and the public on matters of general information and/or concerns.
Just one very brief update. So we're pleased to announce that we do have a new member of the community services team. His name is Andy Shoup. He'll be serving as the recreation supervisor with the primary responsibility of overseeing the Discover San Gabriel publication as well as the aquatics programming that we have here in San Gabriel. And I think it's a testament to what a great city we are that he's driving all the way from Apple Valley to San Gabriel to work with us. So we appreciate the dedication and we look forward to seeing how he contributes to the city.
Wow, that's amazing. Okay, if there's nothing else, then the next regular Hair Commission meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 26, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. Information regarding matters to be considered at each meeting will be available on the Friday before the Hair Commission meeting on the city's website at www.sangabrielcity.com. This regular meeting is